Yeshkeach Harav Butman, and we're going to do the Siyum for the 39th Machzor of the Rambam. It's a very big schus, especially since this is Leilui Nishmas or the schus from the neshama of my father, and Zeicha to be Meshamish the Rebbe for so many years, and is continuing to be Meshamish the Rebbe, and we should see the bracha Dolamata. So, at the very end of Perik Yubbeis of Hilchos Malachim u'Molchames Hashem, the Rambam says in Halacha Hey u'Be'esei Azman Lo yeh sham le'ra'av v'lei milchama v'lei kina v'sachlis. In that era, in the time when Mashiach will come, there will be no famine, there will be no war, there will be no jealousy, no competition. Shahatoiva mushpas harbe, because goodness will flow and will be in tremendous abundance. V'chol ha'ma'adanim mitzuyin ka'ofen, and all of the lights will be found like the dust of the earth, like the kernels of sand. And the Rebbe points out here, ka'ofen, it doesn't only mean that it'll be many as the offer, but actually it'll have the value of the offer, because people won't see the value in the Gashmias anymore, because they will see the value in, as it says in the next line, that won't be the occupation of the entire world, all of the creation, only to have Deya es Hashem, which this actually connects it to the beginning of the Rambam, the inyan of Leda, that there should be the knowledge of the Eibishter. And therefore, the Bnei Yisrael will be tremendous chachamim, v'yedim dvarim hastumin ha'amukim. And not only that, they'll also know and have knowledge of the deep, hidden, and concealed aspects of Hashem. V'yasigu das beiram k'fi ke'ach ha'adam, and they will be able to grasp the das, the knowledge of the Creator, as much as a human being has the ability to grasp. Shenemar ki mola oretz de'es Hashem, as it says that the entire world will be filled with knowledge of Hashem. With this, the Rambam finishes the Yad HaZaka, and we finish the 39th cycle to go into the 40th cycle. Just to elaborate just for a moment, we know that the Rebbe brings out that there are two tkufis in Yemei Mashiach. Actually, the Sikh is printed at length in Chelik of Zayin, and the Rebbe speaks about the fact that in order to reconcile what the Rambam writes in the Yad HaZaka, benegay to the Yehudim, that there is no difference between the time before Mashiach to after Mashiach, only Shibud Malchias, and basically nature will continue. And yet, in the Igeres of Tchias HaMesim, he does write that the Inyanim are kipshuton, that there will be these great miraculous, unnatural events until the greatest miracle of Tchias HaMesim. And the Rebbe says that it's going to be in two tkufas, and it's not a stira one to the other. Why am I mentioning this? Because B'Hashgacha Pratis, the Siyum of the Rambam is taking place on Yud Zayin Tammuz, Shivasa B'Tammuz. And Shivasa B'Tammuz Be'etzem is Teiv, because Shivasa B'Gematria Teiv. And the Rebbe explains, and we want to connect it actually to the Siyum of Masechta Tainis, since Shivasa B'Tammuz is a Tainis. So there's a direct link between the end of the Rambam, which we just learned, to the Siyum of Masechta Tainis. Because of the Siyum of Masechta Tainis, after the Rambam explains the harshness and the chumris of Etzoim, of all the fasts, and how one needs to conduct themselves, especially when they see the Ore Yehuda b'churbanon. And then he says in Halacha Yutes, Kol hatzei sa'elu asidin libotu lebeis HaMashiach, that all these fasts that he enumerated before will be bottled, they'll be null and void, and they won't exist in the time of Mashiach. And not only that, but they will eventually become Yomim Tevim, v'mei sasin v'simcha. And not only will they be Yomim Tevim, there'll also be days of tremendous merriment and joy. And he brings a raya, proof to this, from the Pasuk in Zechariah, where it says at the end that these days will be, he enumerates there the Tzema Aviv, the Tzema Chamishi, the Tzema Shvi, the Tzema Asiri, Yiraves Yehuda, the Sasin, the Simcha, the Meidim Tevim, v'emes v'hasholem ahevim. So in this halacha, the Rebbe asks a question in Chelek Tezvav. It was a sikha that was negay, it was Pashas Vayigash and Asar V'Teves, but it's negay to what we are learning today. And the Rebbe asked the question: if if these fasts are eventually going to become null and void, isn't that automatically a transformation that it should be a Yom Tov? So why does the Rambam continue and say, not only that, but he repeats again, the future is that they're going to be Yom Tov v'Yimei Sasim v'Simcha. It's a very lengthy sikha, a deep sikha, but in that sikha, the Rebbe says again, benegea to the two tkufas. And he says that there will be two tkufas of Mashiach. So the first part of the Rambam, when he says that kol hatzei misa'elu asidin libato, that's the first kufa. So that will be null and void, and that automatically will make it a happy day, but it won't necessarily be a major yontif and not Yimei Sasa V'Simcha. That Yehofchu, Yom Yimei L'Sasa V'Simcha, the transformation that this very day of sadness becomes a day of happiness, not only because the cause is no longer there, that the tzara is bottled, but rather the essence of the day is revealed, that it's a day of goodness and simcha. That will be in the second kufa. So the siyum of the Rambam is very much negaya to these days that we're beginning with the 3 weeks, because in essence what the Rambam is saying, that in Yemei Mashiach they will be bottled, and not only that, but when it comes to the second tkufa, the higher tkufa, they will actually become Yomim Tevim and Yemei Sasa V'Simcha. May Hashem help that this should happen immediately. Just want to add that there were many siyumim and hadronim that the Rebbe gave on the Rambam. One of the most fascinating, they were all fascinating, and who are we to measure? We all remember when the Rebbe spoke about it, Yutas Kislev Tavshel Lamed Hey, which was a major sikha on the siyum, and especially in the Haskalah, and then later in the Mems. But I want to mention when the Rebbe spoke Shabbos Parshas Vayakil and Tavshel Mem Vov on the Siyum Harambam. And everybody remembers it was a very difficult time, Yemot. The Rebbe was in pain. And I want to mention it, but at the same time that the Rebbe was in physical pain, the Rebbe actually brought out the depth of the meaning of the Rambam in a very deep way. And now is not enough time to repeat that sikha, but there is one point in that sikha that I want to mention. And that is that the Rebbe says over there, that it says in the beginning of the Rambam, Ozlei Eivish, Ba'abitel Mitzvah, is that the idea of not only Loi Eivish, that a Jew is not embarrassed, but a Jew remembers that we are a living testimony for Hashem. And the Rebbe said, it says, Atem Eidai. And the idea of Eidus is B'choes Spoiv. The Eivish says, with you, I am proud. Why? Because you're my Evet. That when we're Avodim, and we have the total Hismasrus to Hashem, that brings out the pride, because then we represent through our Hismasrus the Eibishter to the Welt. I want to say on a personal note that growing up in the footsteps and in the shadow of my father, one of the things that we saw by him was this Hisbatlus and Hismasrus to the Rebbe. He was a true Evet to the Rebbe. Kol Mitzuyusei was the Mitzuyus Ha'odin. His entire life was devoted to the Rebbe. His delight was the Rebbe. His awe was the Rebbe, his respect was the Rebbe. And even after serving in that capacity as a masker for so many years, over 44 years, every time he entered into the Rebbe's room, it was with the same bittul. It was with the same awe and the same trepidation. But I want to bring out another thing, that B'negea to Limud HaTorah, since we're doing the Limud Harambam, my father would always tell me that the Limud Harambam by the Rebbe, once the Rebbe introduced the Dachon Shel Pesach Tovshin Mem Daled, was Yokar Mikol Yokar. And even though tonight we're also celebrating the Siyum on the Perek Echad, but he said by the Rebbe, the 3 prokim was the Iker Shebe Ikrim. That was Oton, the dry prokim of the Rambam. And the idea of learning Torah is what actually connected my father to the Rebbe in the first place, because as a bacher, he would actually go into the Rebbe to ask the Rebbe Shilas late at night. This is in the time of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Then the Rebbe asked him that he should help him with the Eitzos Asfarim, and eventually he took him under his wing, and then officially gave him and appointed him the position of a maskir. So it was side the union of his batlus to the Rebbe, or totally his masrus, but also a koch in the Rebbe's Teda. A koch in the Rebbe's Teda means that every word of the Rebbe in the Rebbe's Siches, in the Rebbe's Michtovim, in the Rebbe's Igris, the stories of the Rebbe was Yoker Mikol Yoker. Every Friday night by the table, he would give over a nekuda from the Rebbe. He would find a letter from the Rebbe, something that wasn't yet printed, but that he had the reshus to be megala a nekuda of it, and he would share with the family a nekuda of the letter, and he would tell the story of the Rebbe. The whole chayas was the inyan from Rebbe. And in addition to that, there was a tremendous lipshach to the Rebbe. And finally, one other aspect, because there are lots of aspects in his life, in his long life of serving the Rebbe, was the inyan of tzius, of mashmas, of folging, listening to the Rebbe. Now, of course, any chassid you ask, of course, he will say, the Rebbe hates tutmen, it's no shaila. But it's not just as the Rebbe hates tutmen, the Rebbe hates tutmen pinklach with Rebbe vil, sa'afilo nochmer. In other words, that there should be no shakla v'tarya chas v'sholem to say, maybe I can get away with it halfway. I don't have to do everything. By him, the inyan of listening to the Rebbe to fulfill the Rebbe's ratzon, that was ikar shebe'ikar. And in that in itself, we always saw by him that he was always trying to find ways to bring the Rebbe nachas ruach. He would always ask people to write good news. He himself, whenever he got good news, he would write it into the Rebbe. Even my brother and I, when we were bachrim in yeshiva, we were in Eretz Yisrael, shluchim, and we would write reports of the mitzvayim and reports of the different activities. He would always send it to the Rebbe, writing Ula Yigrem Nachas Ruach L'Kvei Kedushas Admor Shmita. And the Rebbe many times would cross it out and say Goram Nachas Ruach Rav. To him, that was the main thing. And we saw the Peil when he was standing next to the Rebbe, that he was always trying to figure a way how to make it easier for the Rebbe. In other words, to bring Nachas to the Rebbe, to understand that the Rebbe is everything in our life. So the Mela, the Iyan of Takonas Harambam, and Limud Harambam, and participating in the Siyum Harambam, that's why for all the years he participated in the Siyum Harambam, was a very important point in his life. So the Rebbe to help him, that we should be able to see Be'enei Basar, the Rebbe with us, Dolamato, in our lives, and my father and all of the Chassidim of the Rebbe, to be able to be Mishamish the Rebbe, and there should be the Gilui HaMashiach, take from Yad Mamish, and to be Takem Mekuyim, the Peil Mamish, that you hope for Yom Emelu, L'Sasil L'Simcha. Thank you very much.